Find your own solutions. Go at your own pace. Give yourself permission to be you.
Myth, legend.
We need your help.
Fine, but first, gentlemen, it's been an honor. What? I made new friends. Get over it. Jealous?
Had another insight which I want to share. Before I ever looked into autism, I was researching complex PTSD, as obviously I had quite a lot of different traumas from childhood to relationship and later the cold trauma. And after that also some trauma from work as an autistic. It is excruciatingly difficult to get a diagnosis in Switzerland for complex PTSD. And when you have only an autism diagnosis, which for me came at age 46, 2020. So all the rest, there is stuff you have to deal with, which is not autism. You can look that up yourself. Complex PTSD can make it difficult to trust others. If the trauma involved abuse, their feelings about their abuser may be complicated. Oh yeah. These therapies here, they are fucking bullshit. Talk therapy does not work for trauma if you don't include the nervous system. Some kind of bottom-up therapy approach. And medication is fucking goddamn useless because it does not treat trauma. It does not heal anything. Bessel van der Kolk has done these studies himself, and he says medication for trauma, it doesn't work.
I was raised in the mainstream culture where if you feel bad, you take something to make that feeling go away. Around that time that I first started to work for the VA, I looked at the treatments that we have. I did the first study on Prozac for PTSD, the first study for Zoloft for PTSD, and a number of other conventional drugs. What we found is that it didn't work very well. Our conventional way of thinking about it is not working. I thought, okay, if it doesn't work, let's see what else can work. My name is Bessel van der Kolk. I am a physician, I'm a psychiatrist. I have been studying trauma for about 50 years now.
And one of the things he suggests is integrate the senses through rhythm. We're physical animals, and to some level we're always dancing with each other. Our communication is as much through head nodding and smiles and frowns and moving as anything else. Kids in particular and adults who as kids were victims of physical abuse and neglect lose those interpersonal rhythms. Rhythmical interaction to establish internal sensory integration is an important piece. So, some sort of rhythmical interaction to establish internal sensory integration is an important piece that we are working on. With kids, we work with sensory integration techniques like having them jump on trampolines and covering them with heavy blankets to have them feel how their bodies relate to the environment, because that's an area that gets very disturbed by trauma, neglect, and abuse, especially in kids. For adults, I think we've resolved rhythmical issues with experiences like tango dancing, qigong, drumming. I have found Tai Chi also very recharging and regulating when people in a group do the same movement very slowly. It's very meditative. And I had a good teacher, Lee Rong Mei. And Lee Rong Mei's teacher was Fu Zongwen. That's a direct line from the Yang style Tai Chi. However, I got a bit disenchanted with all the chaos around. When I want to do something, then it is just about learning this martial arts or whatever that is without the social stuff around it. That's just me as an autistic, right? So that's why group settings are always a bit challenging for me. So I had to find another solution. And one of those was drumming. Any of these put one organism in rhythm with other organisms and is a way of overcoming this frozen sense of separation that traumatized people have with others. These are 4 keystones that can make healing from trauma faster and more effective. In order to give patients the best chance for recovery, consider these steps as you plan your interventions and treatments. As you see, I do orient myself on the current research that is being done, that is up to date, and I read up on many things, and then I combine all these things in my own way. CBT, I'm really not a fan of that because that's gaslighting yourself. This, however, yeah, this is a way better approach. And then there is neurofeedback, and what helped me the most was somatic experiencing. But again, it is expensive, it takes a lot of time, and insurance does not pay for it. So, what can you do? I have found my own solutions. Doing forest walks, for example. Forest bathing. It's so regulating, so calming, so cleansing as well. And I draw my own mandalas. I have been doing that for a very long time, since age 21, on and off. But now I am really consciously using it as a form of therapy, because you get into a flow while you are drawing. And this is a parasympathetic state. You are relaxed, and in that state things can happen. It's very recharging and healing. And the result is usually very rewarding. So that's my way of healing trauma, using many different tools all together. The official channels are not accessible for me, and I have basically given up on that. And I'm so glad that I found a way better solution, which is indirect, not re-traumatizing, and sets a very gentle pace. So I've been working with that since last December, and it has thoroughly helped me heal up different issues, one thing after the other, just as it is needed. No outside pressure, no demands, no weird perspectives and pressure to behave in a certain way or use that particular technique, which, by the way, is actually more invalidating and gaslighting myself. So no thanks to that. Not doing that. Nope. What I want is true healing and actually removing all the debris and find what is underneath it, whatever that is. A while back I have done some videos about PDA, which is pathological demand avoidance. It's just the name that is given, and they are trying to change it into extreme demand avoidance. And I have looked into it. I've not been evaluated for PDA. The official diagnosis I have is Asperger's autism, and this is just part of my own investigating, and scored quite high, but this is not an official questionnaire apparently. It was this questionnaire from Liz Onions because I wanted to know, right? If you don't have a diagnosis, you don't get access to the therapies or support you would need, and you only get the generalized treatment for autism. I'm not really a fan of diagnosing myself, but this is how our society runs, right? So this is the test I did. I have another video, I think, where I go through the whole test. This is the reference to this test. It is quite thorough, really. These are the videos, just me looking into this topic.
PDA as a neurobiological response to our environment and its threat on our autonomy and freedom.
I can totally relate to that. For me, this is something sacred. My agency, my autonomy, finding my own solutions. This is directly from the PDA Society. What are demands? Verbal instructions, pecking order, commands, agendas, written instructions, requests, direct demands, orders, indirect demands, prompts, questions, rules. So all of these definitely for me can be very, very triggering and stressful.
In much the same way that we respond with avoidance to demand pressure from other people.
So for me, demand pressure is when I'm anxious about something. Like, for example, booking a flight, planning how to set it up to go drumming in the forest. It took several steps, like tiny baby steps, until I was actually ready to take the drum and go to the forest and drum there. And this is my own pace, and it prevents me from having too much anxiety, getting too excited over something. I just do the doable steps. So first it was just going to the forest, having a walk, or just sitting there. And then, do that for a while, until one gets kind of used to it. It's not a big deal anymore. And one actually enjoys it. So it's a positive reinforcement. And then I can go to the next step, which is taking the drum and going to a place where I feel comfortable and sitting down and so on. Otherwise, if I want to do everything at once, I just feel overwhelmed. And then I do nothing at all because I kind of shut down and freeze. And therefore, for me, it's very important to have my own pace. So important. And some people, they just are misguided in their approach, and they think they are doing good. They mean well, probably, but it's not beneficial to me. It causes more stress. It causes demand pressure. When somebody barges in, basically, and says, now you have to do that, and now you can only do that, and I'm just like, completely like, like a car would drive on a road and then something, boom, smashes into it, and then you're completely thrown off your own pace. And then you have to just reorient and, what just happened? And it's so distracting. It's so distracting. So that's why I prefer to do things on my own.
Is organizing chaos without control. There are mages who ignore their emotions. And then there are mages who are consumed by them. It is your job to control chaos, not become it.
That's how I avoid stress. That's how I avoid the feeling of demand pressure. Already the pressure I put on myself is sometimes too much, and that's why I divide it in those baby steps. But I can't have somebody barging in and taking over, basically, suddenly wanting to be the captain of my ship. Like some infiltration on my own ship. No thanks. No, I cannot allow that, because it will re-trigger the trauma response from having been dominated by my dad. And during relationship and in the cult, having to follow this very strict set of rules and all that, which was a structure imposed on me, not my own. But when that happens, when people barge in and so distract me, it sets off the stress response, and my amygdala is so triggered, and then I go into this fucking rage. I mean, it's bad.
And your chaos explode.
It's so much rage that comes out, and that's a self-defense mechanism, I think. And then I'm all hissing cat and raging tiger. And that's not good, because then my system is in fight response, and until I calm down again, that takes so much time, and then usually it goes into the opposite direction of freeze, shut down.
They'll hiss at you with a surprisingly terrifying hiss. And if that doesn't work, they are ridiculously good at playing dead. Even pick them up, nothing, dead.
And then I do nothing at all. It's just paralyzed. Deer in the headlight. So all the more I realized I have to really set up boundaries. This is self-preservation. It's not meant to exclude anybody, but that's just the way I have to deal with it to prevent anxiety.
You have to come with me. Now, I don't trust you.
It's self-preservation, nothing else.
Self-preservation is a behavior that ensures the survival of an organism. It is almost universal among living organisms. Self-preservation may also be interpreted figuratively, in regard to the coping mechanisms one needs to prevent emotional trauma from distorting the mind. Defense mechanism. Even the most simple of living organisms, for example, the single-cell bacteria, are typically under intense selective pressure to evolve a response to avoid a damaging environment, if such an environment exists.
I do not want to be in a fight response all the time. That's no state to be in, and it's very harmful actually. So, yeah, that's where I felt that I might fit the PDA profile, but it's not always. And that's why I think this demand pressure is actually rather trauma related.
Hypersensitive neuroception, neuro meaning brain, ception, what I receive from the environment and my surroundings, is alerted. So what happens is that our amygdala, the part of our brain that takes in information from our surroundings and assesses how much of it is a threat, is largely overactive. So this means that we receive way more of our environment as a threat than the average person. Most people think that we have a need to be in control. And whilst that is true, our demand avoidance is largely driven by our inherent need, our inherent organic, intrinsic need for autonomy. So that means that we are born with a neurobiology, we are born as beings who require more say over our lives.
I can relate to that a lot. I want to be the captain of my own ship. That's all. But I do have demand avoidance under certain circumstances. Back to the self-preservation. I have found it very helpful to map myself out, especially since I'm rather very visual. I very often don't have any words for what I experience. I just experience it. And then that's why I listen to so many of these videos, and I find that people like Christy Forbes and other actually autistics can express things that suddenly give me a concept of what I am experiencing. I have come across this term on Donna Williams' page, and it is not mentioned anywhere in the autism community as far as I am aware. This is apperception. Apperception is how your mind puts new information in context. You get a perception of a chair through your eyes, but apperception is how your mind relates it to chairs you've seen before. We have many perceptions, information we take in through our senses, like it's cloudy today. And apperception goes one step further by considering the perception in relation to things you've perceived in the past. Apperception is a sophisticated mental process that keeps developing through our lives. It's a basic cognitive process involved in obtaining and storing knowledge. So when I hear other people describing something I experience, then I get a new pair of eyes, basically, and I get more context of what I'm experiencing, and then it clicks, and things become more present. Yeah, more cognitive, actually. So I have words for that. And this process I call mapping myself out. And this is very helpful also for drawing boundaries, because then you know what you are dealing with. Then, of course, you have to keep those people out who do not have your back, who invalidate you, who undermine your experience, who think they know better what is good for you. These people you have to keep out. And you can trust that the universe will guide you in finding your people, your tribe, for sure. Look for synchronicities. You will meet your people.
People linked by destiny will always find each other.
And then you can say stop. This is causing me anxiety. This is stressing me out. And you can then find ways around it. But this also means preventing other people from taking over and being your own captain of your own ship. That makes only sense, right? This is agency. This is autonomy.
As my home, my fight